This method of sashing is one that I like to call Sassy Sashing. You're actually finishing the back of the project as well as the front of the project. So you can use it for quilting as you go. I used it in my little bits organizers. These squares are designed to have the front and back embroidery all done in the hoop. Then they're trimmed with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then when you finish the project, finish the sashing, you can see that the inside is also finished. So I thought I'd show you how to do Sassy Sashing with my little bits of green organizer. I'm going to put that together today. And I have already made my pieces in the hoop. There's not very many. This project, you only have 5 little hoopings. The squares are all finished in the back, and I have trimmed them all so that they have a 1/4 inch seam allowance. The next thing I want to do is trim a couple pieces of fabric so that they're 1 1/2 inches wide. Once you have your sashing strips cut, you need to press the long edges toward the center. There are a couple of ways to do this. One, you can do it by hand. I strongly recommend that you do not do that. It's almost impossible to get the edges perfectly straight. You can use a little clover tool, or other brands make them too. This is a little, they call them bias tape maker tips, but obviously this is not bias tape. We have not cut this fabric on the bias, but it is a handy little tip. And I've cut and starched this end. Just have to pull it through. It's always the hardest getting it started. And once you do get it started, just give it a little pin. Whoops. Pull it out a little bit, and with your iron, just follow that tip, and that will give you a nice double folded piece of sashing. Here's another way to make your double folded sashing strips. If you already have a Simplicity bias tape maker, pull that out and put on the 3/4 inch tip. If you don't already have one, I'm sorry to say, but Joann Fabric has stopped selling them. I can't find them anywhere. I hope somebody somewhere starts selling them again soon, because this is one of the best tools in my little sewing room. I have cut my sashing strip. I've trimmed the edge so it comes to a point, and I've starched it a little bit so that it's easier to feed through this tip. You can definitely tell I need a new one of these. So I could take this tip off to do it, but it's just as easy for me to leave it on. If you do it this way, really be careful that you don't burn your fingers. Just kind of slide that fabric back and forth. I try to get it so that I have fold all the way to the edge. Put your plate back on and press run. And you can see that it gives you a really nice, sharp, double folded piece of fabric. Once you've pressed the long ends of your sashing toward the center, we're ready to go. I want to sew these 2 blocks together, and the hardest part for me to remember is that I'm going to be sewing them the opposite way I normally would. So just as a note to those of you who have made this project or are making it, I want to make sure that the block, the side of the block that does not have any batting in it, goes to the bottom, and the part where we didn't cut out the batting is at the top. So I'm going to sew these blocks wrong sides, or insides together. I guess they're not wrong sides, but they form the inside of the container. And I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I already have my 1/4 inch foot on there. And here we go. All right, there we go. I'm going to repeat that for the next couple of blocks. See, I need a back next, batting, batting side at the top, and let's see, insides together. I have to really think about that. Sure I'm all lined up. I have a bad habit of not pinning. I'm sure a bunch of you are out there cringing watching this. Don't worry, I'll pin in a minute. Make you happy. Get another side piece. No batting, batting, and insides together. Hey. I will want to sew that fourth seam together, but it'll be easier to finish the other seams before I do. So I'm going to save that one for the very last one. Okay, so there's a few layers of fabric in here, and I'm going to separate the two green from the back, and I'm going to press, whoops, I'm going to press this seam open. Try not to burn my fingers. So I don't know if you can tell that I'm doing this, but I'm actually not setting the whole iron down. I've got just the tip touching the fabric. I don't want to iron the entire blocks or I'll lose the nice stippling. Now that I have my seams pressed open, I'm going to take the sashing that we made with the long edges pressed toward the center, and I'm going to place it right over the center of those seams. And take a look, I'm actually pinning something. Make sure that's in the center, and it is. I'm going to take this to the machine and top stitch really close along both edges to tack it down. I've changed to a regular presser foot and I've adjusted my needle position so that it's going to sew right on the edge of the sashing. And I'm also going to set my width, stitch width, to a width of 3. I'll turn it around and do the other side. I'll trim off this excess sashing. And now you can see how pretty that looks on the front, and it's completely finished on the back. I'll go do that for the rest of the strips. I finished sashing those 3 seams. Now I have the last seam to go and do. I'll sew those right sides together. No, I won't. I'll sew them wrong sides together, open it up, press it out, and stitch the sashing over the seam. But you can see how nice that looks. Just a pretty top stitch on the front, and the back is completely finished. I just love this method, and I hope you enjoy it too.